Our ethnic studies department started because the students and their parents wanted it. So it was something that they actually fought for. It wasn't part of any kind of national curriculum. There was no national mandates to say that you needed to learn the history of any other people in this country aside from, quote unquote Americans, right? And that idea is very Eurocentric.
I think that a lot of reasons that people they don't offer these classes is because they don't have the staff to do it. They don't have the knowledge to put it into place in a high school, because it's typically a class that you take in college, and therefore it's not one of the core standard classes that one would take. And so it takes a lot of work for people. There has to be a demand for it, and because of that, I think people are afraid of what ethnic studies can do sometimes, or the empowerment that it can give kids, that some people are afraid of it.
It's a subject where it's not, in my opinion, not really understood how it impacts high school studies, in terms of the traditional U.S. history, social science, elective areas, because those areas are already kind of covered. But the awareness that ethnic studies gives out is more particular to in the areas of culture and understanding culture and its impact on yourself as a person as well as the communities. And that's not always thought of in a high school setting, more like a college setting.
Ethnic studies is basically about their ethnicity and their culture, right? Depending on which ethnic studies class you take, you can be very specific as to your ethnic background. At this school we have the African American history and heritage classes. We have the Mexican American history and the issues classes. We have Asian American studies, and then we have the Filipino heritage studies. So there's a whole gamut of different ethnicities that students can kind of study and take a look at. And if they don't fall into those specific ethnicities or quote unquote racial groups, as a lot of the institutions like to call them, then they can find the similarities, right? They can look at the experiences of those different ethnic groups and say, hey, my parents, my grandparents, my community has gone through those same things, and they can see themselves in that history, as opposed to a regular, social science or U.S. history course, or even a world history course. You don't necessarily focus on the people themselves. You focus on the larger dynamic of the culture, and you look at the institutions. I think ethnic studies is important to the communities in which it's taught. It introduces another sense of pride, right, to the communities, especially the younger community, right? Because we don't necessarily see so many cultural celebrations in our city anymore. We have them in pockets and in little spaces here, but there's no huge celebrations. There's no huge gatherings anymore. You still have the 4th of July. You have some Cinco de Mayo stuff, but as far as bringing communities together, you usually just find them within maybe church and faith-based groups, or that's pretty much where you see them.
You referred back to this idea of cultural practices. Take it with hip-hop and say my history, so Filipino history. Hip-hop is an art form that was created by the oppressed as a way of expression and also as a form of healing. Because during the time that hip-hop was conceived in the Bronx in 1973, it was a way of escaping the conditions of the Bronx during a time where the economy was at a low, I would say.
Art connects to ethnic studies because it's like a form of expression. Because my broad interpretation of art can be like dance, for example. Because I like to dance in a way that allows me to be who I am and express myself in the same way with culture, when you express your culture, you're expressing yourself and who you are.
Our ethnic studies department has put together shows, right, cultural celebrations, and even fundraisers, if you want to call them that, where the students put together what we like to call edutainment, right? It's coined by KRS-One, something that educates people while entertaining them. So you have cultural work, you have people singing songs and dancing and creating skits and creating even short films to not only entertain the public, but to also educate them about things that are going on.
So in an event called Via Nihon, there's actually an open mic, which is a place where people can showcase whatever they like. So when you go to these events, a lot of times there's spoken words about like cultural identity or sexual identity and all that, gender norms. But what I do in those performances, I like to express myself through dance, because I feel as if it truly expresses who I am, and it really delivers a performance to the audience.
One of the main reasons why we have ethnic studies as a requirement to graduate is because we are such a diverse school, and one of our goals is to be more united. Our slogan is diversity is our strength, unity is our goal. And basically it's kind of like, how do we make that happen? We wanted to make it a full year requirement, but we already have so many more requirements, and some kids are involved in so many things that for the time being we only have one semester as a requirement.
Really, for me, enriching to see that this message is out there in a little bit bigger place and other folks are involved and aware. We now have folks who are actually university professors do those things. Not so much I'm directly involved in that, but the fact that there's an interest and awareness for that lets those things get enhanced. You know, courses at college level, high school, we're hoping to have more things happen. I was back east last summer in Washington D.C. and doing a presentation. It was really great to see how many districts weren't aware that something at high school could happen like this. So it really is a big thing to see happening, as it's starting to change in awareness for the importance of ethnic studies.
Ethnic studies has made me more involved in my community, and it's made me want to make a change. For example, after taking ethnic studies classes, I joined a community organization called Filipino Advocates for Justice, where we look to educate the youth and just better our community.
But I believe it's important for young people to find out the history of their families, find out the history of their people earlier, so they can create that identity. Because we all know that as adolescents, finding out who you are is one of the biggest things. Because from freshman year in high school to senior year in high school, you have 4 different years to reinvent yourself, right? Everyone's trying to create the idea of who they are. And we don't want to let the media do that for us. We don't want to let other people do that for us. We want to let, the young people, we want to let the individuals themselves realize who they are on their own.
Another thing that happens is that we have students who go out and be community activists from things that they learned in our classes, along with other classes obviously, but they say that our class was like the changing factor for them to go out and be activists and make change in the community.
And if we look at our current situation, if we focus on what's really going on and pull ourselves from always trying to escape it, we're going to be better able to address a lot of those issues. We're going to be able to see that those connections that we need to make to be able to solve our own problems, rather than waiting for, like what the media tells us, that one Superman or Superwoman or that one superhero to kind of save the day. That we as a community, we as people can come together and make the change ourselves, right? That we don't need to wait for this individual, this superhero to come save us.